Hello and welcome to the European Resilience Initiative Center video podcast. Today our guest is Georgi, who is a founder and host of Ukraine Matters YouTube channel with 128,000 subscribers. Welcome, Georgi.
Hi, Sergej. Nice to be here. Is
Thank
it Eric? When I read your abbreviation, I always think of Eric, and I find it hilarious. I'm pretty sure you're a serious organization, but it's just Eric. Is it not?
That is exactly how we selected the name, because we were looking for the abbreviation which people can pronounce, not like some abbreviation when you stumble on the second letter and think, okay, what is the third letter? Is it G or A or H? I don't remember. And Eric is something what people can read and remember. And we have even got some donors who said, "Oh, you are Eric, and my name is Eric too. So here is my money for your activities, like for your drone campaigns, etc." But I see that you already started to interview me, while I wanted to interview you.
I'm sorry.
So no, you're welcome, and that is what obviously you do great, because we see like you have such a great reaction of your audience, almost 130,000 subscribers. But why Ukraine matters for you?
Oh, it's a difficult topic to answer. I'm not sure where to start. Is the YouTube channel? Is it everything? Ukraine is a country that it's not a perfect country, right? It's a country that is not known for being one of the leaders of the world in a lot of things. If we, for example, come back like 10 years ago, specifically, we're talking like the living standards, maybe corruption. One of the things that Ukraine is known for, something like, sex tourism, not very famous things. However, all of that doesn't mean that the country should be allowed to invade. The country should be allowed to be tortured and essentially brutalized. And in my perspective, that is not what it's be. So there is one aspect of this where it's just unfair what is happening right now to Ukraine. Secondly, Ukraine is a country with a lot of people that I believe see the world in a lot brighter colors than a lot of people that have been staying in Europe for a while. I think in the last specifically decade, there's been a lot of downshifts in Europe, and there was a lot of negativism towards democracy, what democracy stands for, and so on. And I feel that Ukraine, with the drive towards joining Europe, was a great movement to revitalize that democratic drive, revitalize the democracy. I'm a big proponent of democracy. So that's the second aspect. And then the third one is absolutely to go with the fact that Ukraine is a place where my wife is born. So that is also a personal connection there, and I have a family there, and everything is it's just personal for me.
Wow, you have named like three aspects, which I think many people who are connected to Ukraine, they could say, okay, that is partly my perspective. The first aspect we have mentioned is this story of Ukraine was not a country being pictured very positively 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And here I would say that is not it a paradox that, let me say, Russia, where you know that everything is corrupt. We have seen it in Russian army. We have seen like how they have sold their own weapons, actually. But Russia managed to avoid the stigma of being corrupt. Or even when Russia was corrupt, people say, okay, but you still can do business there. While Ukraine, with all anti-corruption NGOs, with investigations, with Maidan revolution, which was essentially about people shaking off the corrupt Yanukovych elites, was still pictured as a corrupt country. Do you think that there was like Russia's disinformation campaign to smear Ukraine?
Absolutely, like no questions asked. Russia is a disinformation and gaslighting champions, which is completely overlaid with many levels of issues. Firstly, the idea that Russia is this big juggernaut of culture, that Russia is this country that has built up its legacy over decades and centuries, that has always been there, whereas reality, it's a colonial empire that's just been erasing and stealing history from all other countries. So whenever a lot of the countries' cultures are being talked about, it's like, oh, it's just Russian, it's like it's Russian culture, whereas actually it's just Russia stealing things from the people that they colonize. So a lot of that is not being attributed to the right countries. So there's a perspective, there's already like a fertile soil for the reception of information from the outside of people that don't know Russia that well. So there is sympathizers. And then there is the proactive campaign of modern Russia, which is basically follows the best propaganda narratives that were built in the Soviet Union. Russia, the modern Russia, was very successful in transitioning the narrative that it's basically the Soviet Union, that whatever was the Soviet Union and whatever the achievements of Soviet Union was, again, fully Russian achievements. And everyone is now thinking, oh, there was a Nazi uprising and the Soviet Union helped us fight the Nazi uprising. Therefore, Russia help us fight the Nazi uprising. So there is a layer of that. So again, the fertilized soil for this. And Russia utilized it very well. I guess the only kind of thing where I can give Russia credits to what they're doing is that there's information campaign to that fertile soil that's been created has been absolutely incredible. It started very early. Even if in 2014, I just recently rewatched certain videos that overlooked the events that happened in 2014, and it was actually mind blowing. The reaction both from politicians that were just there's a civil war in the east of Ukraine. It's like, no, they're not. They're Russian tanks. Where did you see just people that are supposedly civil war suddenly getting like people from Buryatia are with like the Asian lookalike suddenly just get on the Russian tanks, speaking only Russian with with no Ukrainian accent whatsoever, with all of the documented strikes against Ukraine and so on, and it was absolutely the biggest gaslight of the century. And the problem is that it was just absolutely bought into. The press, the political arguments. I don't know why. Whether it's because we in the Western world are still trying to solve the issues post Second World War with misunderstanding the words never again as, oh, please, please, we're going to do everything to you. We're going to lick your boots of every dictator only so that dictator would not start another war, instead of never again, meaning is like we will not allow a dictator to start any other conflict against a nation in Europe anymore. And this misunderstanding is still prevalent. Even right now, we're still discussing whether or not Ukraine should be allowed to defend itself by shooting at Russia. And I'm hoping this will be solved in the coming days. But it's all legacy from that. So my point is that while Russia is good as gaslighting, and there is definitely some kind of information campaign, there was a very, very strongly fertilized soil here in the West to receive that disinformation. So when Ukraine tried to say, is like, listen to our voices, we have the facts, we have the videos, we have everything. Like, you don't need to be stupid. Like, Russia literally took a part of our country, and it's like, yeah, but like it's civil war. Maybe Putin will stop if we just. That's why.
That is what always made me like absolutely angry, furious when Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov or Russian President Putin, who were caught on lie repeatedly. Just remember how Putin denied the presence of Russian troops in Crimea, and then the presence of Russian troops in Donbass, and all the things. Like, it was like pure lie. He constantly lied in every and each of his interviews, and his words were constantly repeated without any commentary by the Western media. When Putin says we like offer Ukraine peace talks, he offered them like 20 times before, it is being called in the media like a new peace initiative by Vladimir Putin, or Vladimir Putin calls for peace. But when Ukraine says something about Russia's attacks on Ukrainian soil, it always comes with a commentary Russia denies. Like Ukraine claims that Russian missiles hit something, but Russia denies. Of course, like now it is not that bad, but still, when it comes
It's
to
still bad.
yeah, absolutely. Like while when Ukrainians open the next mass graves, there come all the time questions, even in German media by the German politicians, or can we really trust Ukrainians? Can we believe what they say? I remember in early this full-scale invasion, I got a call from a German TV station, from a public TV station in Germany, and they asked me, yeah, like there are reports about mass rape by the Russians. Is it true? I said, yes, it's true. But do you have independent reports? Do you have an official UN report? I told them, you know what? The UN needs several years. And we have a report by respectful Ukrainian NGOs, by Ukrainian authorities. We have dozens and hundreds of witness reports. That's enough. Oh no, they are Ukrainians. They are biased.
I mean, it's not getting much better. Like the fact that we're 2 years in the war, there has been lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, and lies so ridiculous, like the ones that, for example, that Russia has destroyed all the HIMARS that Ukraine has ever received 2 times over, with showing videos of these HIMARS being parked in a third-story building somewhere inside of it, or inside of a shopping mall or something else. And every single time, there's just like, there's proof, there's this, there's that. And everything, despite all of that, every time there's something comes up, it's still being discussed as like, oh, maybe Putin maybe this time he actually means peace. Maybe this time they actually didn't lie. And the worst part is that this is still prevalent. Most notably, this is prevalent when we're talking about fact-based institutions, such as like World Bank or International Monetary Fund evaluating Russian economy, or evaluating Russian military numbers and everything, when Russia is just like, well, this is how much we're producing, this is our economic state, there you go, believe our numbers. It's like, you're the country that is run by liars. You lie about everything. You lie even about the things that should not be lied about. There is no reason to lie about these smaller things, but because they just do, and we just like, yep, well, surely we cannot believe, we don't have the facts against it. This goes against everything. I draw my sources and how I verify the information that I do on my channel is because I studied in academia. We were taught how to work with sources. We were taught how to work with the information, and that you should not believe information if you don't have sufficient basis for it. So when you're stating is like, yes, there has been fact after fact after fact after fact, documented evidence, everything produced about what Russia is doing, and videos. Russian soldiers are making videos of themselves and making pictures of themselves, and there are still questions about it. But when they come out and start talking, and they're talking heads, there is something that just twists in the brains, and then the politicians like, oh, I hear de-escalation talks. And that's just not true. Putin has been offered, like specifically the escalation talk, Putin has been offered every single off-ramp possible. At every step, at every month, maybe every second week of this war, full-scale invasion part, he has been by someone offered a way out. He has been offered a way to de-escalate, get out of the war. I am pretty sure there has been, even still are, the talks that's like, hey, Putin, take whatever you conquered with Ukraine and just get out. And at every single step, and I'm not judging here if this is the right thing to do, it absolutely is not. The only thing that Russians needs to be done is getting out of Ukraine. They should be kicked out with their hands tied behind their backs and making sure that they don't come back. But that's beyond the point. The point is that there are still plenty of people that would be glad to just like, yeah, let's just get out. And it's being offered Putin constantly. I am absolutely certain of this. And he has rejected everything. Instead of rejecting the help, instead of accepting this off ramp for anything, he has been escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating. A response to escalation is not escalation. That's what pisses me off the most. When we're talking about, oh, Ukraine shouldn't be able to do something because it's going to be escalation, Putin has escalated everything. He rejected any peace negotiations. That's it. That's the only thing that should be discussed. So I don't understand why this discussion is still having. To be honest, I find it frustrating that we are having this discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we go deeper and analyze how these relations between Moscow and European capitals, between Ukraine and its NATO and EU neighbors look like, and what can we do as civil society and experts to make the things run where they should run. Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to this video. Don't forget to like and to subscribe to Ukraine Matters video channel by Georgi. And don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to Eric channel, European Resilience Initiative Center. And if you know something who needs to watch this video to get convinced what is right and what is wrong, feel free to send this video link to him or her. We are talking to Georgi, who is a founder and host of Ukraine Matters YouTube channel with 128,000 subscribers. I hope that soon it will be round number 130 and more. And you have already mentioned all these really exhausting discussions when here in Germany, you need to talk like regularly to people like our Chancellor Scholz, who just ignore reality, and we really we spend our time of fighting these people who just deny reality, who just ignore things, and who just tell false things. How can we come out of this circle?
The simple answer is that this is all fear. Like we thought that the world of 2021 will come back. We think that there potentially, I mean, at least some of us think that potentially we are coming back to the world before the Russian invasion, before Europe changed forever. And it feels that we're just not yet there. Our politicians are not there. Scholz is a politician from before the new times, because the new times have started. Let's put it this way. When President Trump says that we are not going to be protecting Europe, that is an American president stating that NATO will not be, and probably one of the most important members of NATO, if not the most important probably, is stating that they will not be protecting Europe. That is a change of policy. That is a change in perspective in the world. And it's changing the perspective in the world at a time when the importance of NATO is more important than ever before. Moreover, it is overlaid with the fact that when the rules and principles of nuclear non-proliferation have been applied with something like Budapest Memorandum in Ukraine, Budapest Memorandum is a garbage paper. I'm not sure if the audience have seen the paper or not, but it's absolute trash. Like, there is nothing concrete there. The whole point of the Budapest Memorandum is the spirit of the memorandum, because spirit of the memorandum states, which it doesn't state, it kind of implies, is that Ukraine gives away their nuclear weapons and it guarantees Ukraine their sovereignty, their territorial integrity of the borders. And it's great. And that's the spirit of it. Because the fact that there's a paper signed, there's nothing in the paper that the countries need to support. There's nothing in the paper that US should do anything. It says just that the countries need to do something, quote unquote.
And here I need to add that there is a very popular, widespread myth that the Budapest Memorandum doesn't guarantee Ukraine anything, but just speaks of assurances, which is only partly true, because the Budapest Memorandum was written in 3 languages, and each language has the final power And three languages are English, Ukrainian, and Russian. And in both Ukrainian and Russian languages, two languages which are most relevant for the parties of this war, it is a memorandum about guarantees. Guarantee in Russian or guarantee in Ukrainian, not assurance, which would be заверение or заверение in both languages. And only in English language it is assurances, but who cares? Russia has signed guarantees that it guarantee that Ukrainian sovereignty will not be challenged, neither in economic, nor in political, nor in military way.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point, and that's part of the additional spirit. Like, I mean, like, we can agree that Russia has broken all of the agreements, all and every agreements. That's not they're up for discussion. What I am implying here is that basically, once we allowed Russia to break this memorandum, and Ukraine after that, after Russia invaded, were just not provided with every and all weapons available to the countries, that Ukraine basically has been put in this position that it needs to almost beg for, can you please help us fight the invader? We gave away our security guarantees from nuclear weapons to get security guarantees essentially in the spirit of the international law. And the international community kind of looks at all of this and shrugs. The countries internally are discussing whether or not we're spending enough to support in Ukraine like it's charity. It's not charity. What's happening is that every single country, whether dictator or not dictator, are looking at this as like, okay, any security guarantees for nuclear weapons, absolute garbage, right in the trash bin. So if I want my country protected, I should get nuclear weapons. So all of the nuclear non-proliferation that we had before 2022 is now out of the window. Secondly, the same now thing with Russia. If Russia now attacks and Russia takes territory, and supposedly the only reason why Russia is now not being responded, why we're talking about this potential escalation and so on, nukes. So that means now for the dictators, if I just want to invade someone, I just need to get nukes. So now all of our nuclear de-escalation in the world, reduction of the nuclear weapons, so we kind of get away, we again get away from the nukes. And then we get to something like Trump and so on, where countries that are having the nuclear weapons, the supposed superpowers of the world, the whole world order that we have pre-2022 was based on one specific thing, that the nuclear powers of the world, the powers that have the ability essentially to destroy the world, they will act responsibly. And I'm sorry to say, Trump is anything but responsible.
Absolutely. And we are facing a situation when two other nuclear powers, Russia and China, are not responsible too. Russia is already waging a war of genocide in Ukraine and threatens the world with nukes, and China has their so-called drills in the Strait of Taiwan. But let me stay at this Russia nuke thing. What really makes me crazy is that in Germany, in particular, a lot of politicians bring as example our ways of dealing with the Soviet Union, saying the Soviets were not a democratic country, they were an aggressive country, unfree country, but still we had deals with them. But wait, I was born in the Soviet Union. I was raised in the Soviet Union up to a certain age. The Soviet Union in the later years was nothing to do with the modern Russia. It was not a free country, of course, but it was not a revisionist country. It was not a country which tried to attack Western Europe seriously. They were really afraid of war. And with all their militaristic society, officially towards their own population, they pleaded for peace. Like, we are peaceful. It is the imperialists who want war. We are against nuclear war. Of course, they had their army. Of course, they had their military plans, but they did not run around in the streets trying to convince their own citizens how great it is to let some nukes explode. And that is what Russians do now. They are convincing since years their own population on every talk show, in every movie, that it is cool to start a nuclear war. they're practically praising the same idea of nuclear Armageddon, out of which Russia would rise up as a winner. They are, from this perspective, they're nothing different from Islamist terrorists of worst shape. They are convincing their own citizen that martyrdom is a great thing, and that is what makes them so different compared to the Soviet Union. Why doesn't people like Scholz and Biden, why don't they understand it?
And this is where kind of my whole tirade that I just made about the nuclears are coming the full way around. It's that the people, they don't want to accept. They are either from the previous leaders from the previous century, the world before the 2022. We are in a completely different world now. The world has changed fully without reversal. We cannot go back anymore. We now live in a lot more dangerous, different world. And we need already new leaders that understand the security guarantees, that not the security status of the world. And we need the leaders to realize that. And right now, we are in the state where the leaders that we're having right now are still from that time. So the only way that we can change them is by forcing the change on them. So it's going to take time for the new leaders to come in, to the ones that are growing in the new environment. That's just how it works, specifically in democracies. But we can try to influence leaders. That's why, for example, for us, it feels that we need to pressure a lot and send letters to our politicians, send requests and so on, just to make sure that they start acting. Because what they were elected on the platform a couple of years ago, a lot of them before the war, is already non-relevant. It's already gone. We're in a different world. And that's basically what it is. The long story short, we are in a different world with different challenges, and we need different leaders. The leaders that are currently driving our boat of democracy are already from previous generation.
That's true. And we have elections in Germany soon, and many countries in Europe have them. The US has elections in November. But even in the US, if you see that both politicians are definitely not from a new generation. And not being a fan of Donald Trump, he is, of course, a disaster. But looking at what Biden administration is doing now, and what Biden as a member of Obama's team did with Russia's war against Ukraine 2014, or in Syria, is also not the best scenario. Of course, we need people who understand and who can act. We need like more people like Churchill or like Adenauer, not people like Scholz or Biden maybe. But when you talked in the beginning of this conversation about your personal interest for Ukraine, you said your wife is from Ukraine, and that makes the whole story so personal for you. I spent 6 years working in Ukraine, have a lot of friends in Ukraine. Some of them, unfortunately, have been killed by the Russians. Some had to leave Ukraine as refugees. It's a very personal story for me, too. But many people in Germany and in other countries from the political elites, they say, oh, you have a personal involvement and you are an activist. That's why I will not listen to you. I will better listen to some people who studied in Moscow. They are calm people. They are experts. They don't have this personal involvement, and we better talk to them because they're not so loud and so emotional.
We have honest conversations with our community, right? I am not a biggest YouTuber. I'm not growing big enough, and to be honest, that's not the point. I'm just being who I am, and it's definitely not for everyone. But people that stick with me are there for a reason, right? It's because I am emotional. It's because they feel the same way, and they feel that they just have to vent frustration somewhere against the situation. People that like me, people that want to listen to the facts, which are a lot more popular, they listen to the fact-based channels a lot more, where it's mostly discussion about what's the actual facts to the ground. Whereas my opinion, my channel is mostly based on like my opinion and our just conversations like this one, except I'm talking with my audience. And the truth is that there are different ways on approaching this. There are people that are talking facts. There are people that are making reasonable cases. But the point is that we specifically that are away from Ukraine, people that don't have connection to Ukraine, and that's the majority of audience, the people that understand or can empathize with Ukraine. People that cannot empathize with Ukraine, they have troubles imagining what it would be like even to have threatened, to have friends that have been occupied, to have people being essentially forced to go to defend their homeland, right? A lot of times these people appear and they start making comments under my videos saying, well, why Ukraine doesn't send all of their 18 years old to the front lines? It's been done on every war. Why don't you do it now? And that's just shows the lack of empathy. That's just show that people just do not understand what it is when a person is essentially, I don't want to say accept death, but accepts that this is what it is. This is the situation. No one wants to die. No Ukrainian wants to die. No Ukrainian wants to go and fight Russians. Ukrainians that I know want to live in peace. Ukrainians that I know, they want to have their peaceful state. All of the military that we're talking about, the armed forces of Ukraine, the defense forces of Ukraine, 90% of them now are not military personnel. They're just civilians. They are the people that yesterday were making me coffee. A day before that, there was another guy. He was my taxi driver. Then a day before that, he was a gym teacher. These are not military people. It's just been forced on them. And for a lot of people, especially in our societies, we live in democracies and we live in idea that we are the forgers of our destiny. So when we are stating that Ukrainians just have to fight, that's not really an option. That this is how they're going. That you can take it as a terminal cancer or something. You can treat it like something that people just don't want to accept. People cannot emphasize because this is not the situation that they can imagine themselves into. That's why I try to do it either emotionally or try to explain how Ukraine works. But it's very hard to reach those people, at least for me, because I don't know how to explain the pain and the fear, most importantly, the fear of my Ukrainian friends and family that are staying there. And if person doesn't want to emphasize, he just believes some Russian bullshit propaganda because he's not bothered enough to look in the news and the facts. Well, how do you even approach that? And I don't have an answer for that. I'm not a scientist. I'm a guy on YouTube.
That is, I think that what you described now is a sort of a core of a problem of this lack of empathy. Why there is this lack of empathy? Because not every person who says, why don't Ukrainians just accept some territorial concessions to Russia and stop the war, they're not all bad people. But they definitely are lacking sometimes information, although it can sound strange. After over 2 years of full-scale invasion, any person has access to all information. But sometimes what you describe, they cannot imagine this horror. And that reminds me on the situation how people explain for themselves bad things that happen to others. Like a person has been robbed. Oh, he or she should have been more clever, not going through that dark park or not showing off his money or her money in the bar, or maybe lock the car better, etc. You always try to explain why is its victim's fault for being attacked or harassed or else. Because you want to convince yourself that I'm a good person, I'm a clever person, that thing will never happen to me. But no, sometimes things just happen because an aggressor has decided to attack you. And you cannot stop this aggression by just being a nice person. I spent 6 years in Ukraine working for a German political foundation. Went to Mariupol many times. We had partners there, the partners who built co-working places, who built libraries, who built cafes, who built bicycle lanes, who try to increase the level of environmental understanding in the city with 2 huge steel plants. many of these people are not living now because Russia has decided to attack, not because there were not enough bicycle lanes, or not because there were not enough Russian-speaking books or Russian-speaking theater in Mariupol. It was practically a Russian-speaking city. It never helped.
Well, if you listen to some of the Russian propaganda, it's because of the LGBTQ plus values that are coming from the West. That's why they attacked. Or I don't know, whichever you prefer. Like my always, like whenever there's a discussion about why did the Russia started this, like sometimes it comes up, and it's like, why did the Russia start? It's like, well, what do you like? Like, what kind of reasons do you like? It's like they're offering the full plethora. It's like, you don't like gay people. Yes, that was because it was LGBT propaganda. People doesn't like, like foreigners, like they're xenophobe. That's because Ukraine was just a country that was populated by non-Slavs. There's plenty of Russian Nazis that are coming to liberate Ukraine because it's a friendly Slavic nation. Like that's how they're painting it. Like, because there's Nazism. Like whenever, and Nazism, I think we're talking. Yeah, obviously Ukrainians are Nazis. It's like for Russia. Like, by the way, everyone is Nazi that doesn't agree with them. That's just it's like, you don't agree with me, therefore you're a Nazi. I know, because we're in the Baltics. The Baltics were the original Nazis. Now we're just supposedly small and irrelevant because the Ukraine is so big. This is specifically hilarious for me when it's being talked about, Azov battalion, or it's now brigade. Is it now brigade? I'm not sure. But Azov brigade. And it's like, oh, Azov, they're the Nazis, and people like start playing, they're like these Ukrainian ultra-nationalists, whereas in reality, Azov are from Mariupol. They're originated in Mariupol, like a local resistance forces, which Mariupol, by the way, if Russians describe themselves, is the most Russian of the cities, as they put it. So it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. Every single argument that Russians are making can be dismissed in 5 minutes. But because they're putting out so much propaganda, everyone can pick and choose whatever they like the most, whichever flavor of propaganda you like. Anything that would fit your narratives. And they're offering this, just like a buffet.
Indeed, it is like a buffet for any taste, and they don't care practically for convincing you in one particular point of view. They just want you to believe that there is no final truth, that anything can be truth, and therefore you cannot believe Ukrainians because you don't know. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. There are different opinions.
There's so many other options.
Absolutely. They did it with MH17, they did it with other things. But before we go further into the discussion, what can we do to make the situation better? Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to Ukraine Matters YouTube channel and to European Resilience Initiative Center YouTube channels. We are talking to Georgi, who is a founder and the host at Ukraine Matters YouTube channel, 128,000 subscribers, and he's explaining Ukraine from his very personal point of view, with his very personal experiences, why Ukraine matters. So, Georgi, tell me, what are your observations with 2 years of full-scale war? You have definitely had a lot of discussions. You see how you can influence minds of people, how you can provide them with some food for their thoughts. What can be done in Europe to make people understand what is going on?
I think my biggest message that I want to deliver, and I'm not pretending that this is the only right way, but this is the message that I feel for myself. Whenever I hear people describing what's happening in Ukraine, and they're describing some absolute nonsense. Specifically if someone starts defending Russia, I maybe don't rush completely to approach the person and say, it's like, you're wrong, we should be defending Ukraine. And there's definitely a place for that, for sure, to defend those values. But my driver is the internal one. When I feel the unsettlement, I ask myself a question: what do I do to make sure that my position is moved forward instead? So I want to essentially encourage and advertise what has been happening for over 2 years now on over 2 years now on my channel. Is be proactive. defend the position and propose your position. Don't just be reactive to whatever Russians are throwing at you, to react to the propaganda and so on and so on. In my perspective, and this is something I'm very glad about my community, is we're continuing promoting the information, the good information, sharing the sources by the Ukrainians, sharing that Ukrainians are getting like victories, that they can do it, that there are good stories there. They are promoting and sharing like fundraisers, donating money, and we're doing our part. We're sending requests to the politicians. So a lot of times we get this urge to just respond to whatever is being thrown at us from the Russian side, and we dedicate our energy to the Russian side. My point is to dedicate that energy towards more proactive on our side, to make sure that the drones are coming into Ukraine, to make sure that the new tourniquets are coming into Ukraine, good ones, the real ones, not the Chinese knockoffs, to make sure that now next winter, right now after many attacks by Russians, the electricity grid is going to go down, so new generators will be relevant closer to winter. All of these things. So the question is, how can we be proactive to support Ukraine from our side? And that's probably the best thing. So whenever you hear someone's like taking, oh my God, I'm not sure who to support in Ukraine or what, it's like, yeah, maybe. But there's a good organization in Ukraine that, that saves dogs. Maybe you're not sure if it's Russia or not that attacked it or not, but could you care about some of the people and their pets in Ukraine? And maybe we can get to some of the people, instead of just being reactive, we can say, well, there is a good thing you can do as well.
Absolutely. And what I can say from my German perspective, we have a very strong response from the German society, from the average Germans. We have raised within the last 14 months donations for over 400,000, closely to 500,000 euro. From average Germans, from €5 to 6,000 euro, and average donation was like 70 euro to support Ukrainian army. And you know what I think that it is for many people in Europe the first time, maybe from the civil war in Spain or something like in the 30s, when people could actively participate in uh, in hostilities on the right side, as they believed. Because our experience with, let me say, with 1980s, 1990s, you can demonstrate, you can demand something. You can even start a peaceful revolution, as it was in Czechoslovakia or in Poland with Solidarność. But when it comes to a full-scale invasion of a fascist power with genocide, no generation before, since 1930s, had that experience. And now suddenly we find us in a situation when people in Germany say, I can donate to fight the Nazis. And that is what my government doesn't do, or doesn't do enough. But I can step in and I can help Ukrainian army to win. I will not go to fight, I will not join the Ukrainian army, but I can send my money to Ukrainian army and help them in the trenches.
Yeah, and I wanna be very very clear, right? Because there are people that having different situations in life. It's not all about money. Because I've been a student myself. I've been a person that doesn't have a lot of disposable income. I've been a person that barely had stuff to eat. I come from very, very poor background. So not everyone has the ability to donate and so on. It's not all about money. A lot of time is specifically because we're living in democracy, it's time to be proactive. I made this whole speech, the frustrating speech about our current leaders not being up to the part, to the task. Well, you can help by pressuring those leaders to make sure that they try to step up at least as much as they can. And we know that it works because we already seen it work. It's been happening nonstop. The more pressure the public uh, puts on their direct representatives, and the lower it is, this direct representative to you, if it's a mayor or something, the more your vote, the more your message, email, whatever, a message to the door, a sticker on the doors of the what is it called, like a city hall or something, anything small. Everything matters. So even dedicating 5 minutes for a week, every week, to send a mail to your direct representative is an incredible investment. It helps. It's obviously not enough, but the war is so huge that it's never going to be enough. It's more about, because we're in this tug of war, this marathon of war, one thing is important is not to burn out. So that's why, for example, you should kind of cheer up and look at the positive things that are happening in Ukraine. And secondly, do the effort, because the only person that crosses the river is the one that tries.
That is absolutely amazing and moving, and I'm so agree with you. Indeed, every step matters, every support matters, and there is so much to be done. And indeed, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and we will need a lot of health and power and emotion and passion to finish this marathon and to celebrate Ukrainian victory one day. It was Georgi, who is a founder and host of Ukraine Matters YouTube channel with 128,000 subscribers. Don't forget to add the number and subscribe to Ukraine Matters channel. Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe to this channel, European Resilience Initiative Center. And if you know any person who needs to watch this video, feel free to share it with them and send it. Thank you, Georgi, for your insights. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you that you have joined our interview.
Sure, Sergej. Anytime.